We're off and running. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Senior. As always, thank you so much for watching today's show and supporting the channel. Coming up here on today's program, the wild card round matchup is set for San Francisco as the 6-seeded Niners will hit the road to play the 3-seeded Eagles in Philadelphia on Sunday. The stage is officially set. Kickoff slated for Sunday, January 11th, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. We found that timeout during that awesome game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers to decide the AFC North late last night. Philadelphia opening up as 3.5-point favorites, so the Niners on the road as 3.5-point underdogs as they're getting that 3.5 number, and the over-under in a game that's going to feature a lot of high-level offensive talent, 46. And all these first-round matchups across the NFC and AFC are solidified because the Niners lost to the Seahawks at home in Week 18 on Saturday night. Of course, Seattle gets the number 1 seed. They get that first-round bye. But then furthermore, in the wild card round, we'll have Bears-Packers in the 2-7, Eagles-Niners in the 3-6, Carolina-Rams in the 4-5. A programming reminder, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for daily and year-round coverage of the Niners. I always have you covered with elite content every single day year-round. But as always, we'll be live for a watch party for this game, Niners-Eagles from Lincoln Financial Field. And a reminder, too, to hit that bell notification and turn on your noties. Therefore, anytime I publish a video like this, anytime we go live, you'll get that notification. And with that, let's preview this Niners-Eagles wildcard tilt. Really excited for this football game on Sunday. What a high-powered matchup we have. Two iconic brands, two great organizations, and a lot of talent on both rosters here. Niners, Eagles in the first round of the playoffs in the wild card round, and obviously these two fan bases, they do not like each other given what has happened in recent memory. How we got here, where the Niners will travel to Philadelphia and play the 3-seeded Eagles. Philadelphia, 11-6 on the year, won the NFC East for the second year in a row. It's the first time that a team has repeated as a divisional winner in the NFC East since the Eagles last did it in 2003-2004. So a little bit of a history element there for Philadelphia, ending that long 21-year drought. The Niners, on the other hand, playing in arguably the best division in the history of football. You might hear that and say, Chase, what are you talking about? It's the only time in the history of the NFL that one division had 3 teams to win at least 12 games. Niners, Rams, Seahawks. San Francisco finishing 3rd place in the NFC West. That's going to bode well for the Niners next year when they get healthier and they have a 3rd-place schedule compared to a 1st-place schedule like the Eagles. The Niners losing to the Seahawks on Saturday night. That game was for all the marbles, for the number 1 seed, and San Francisco's offense got shut down, less than 200 yards of total offense, and only 3 points in that game. Kyle Shanahan was flummoxed by Mike McDonald. The Eagles, on the other hand, blew a wonderful opportunity as well, like the Niners. So both these teams coming into this game, coming off questionable losses, the Eagles elected to rest their starters, play their backups, and they lost to Washington, but the Bears lost to Detroit. So if the Bears lost that game, which they did, and the Eagles would have beaten Washington, Philadelphia would have gotten the number 2 seed in the NFC to host the Green Bay Packers for the 4th time over the last 2 years. And now this Niners-Eagles rivalry is renewed. A lot of history between these two cities as well. San Francisco, an illustrious history. Philadelphia, the birthplace of America. You can't write the history of the United States without including San Francisco and Philadelphia. You look at the wild card weekend schedule all across the board, both in the NFC and AFC. I know I told you those matchups in the NFC earlier, but a little bit of a refresher. On Saturday afternoon, Rams on the road against the Panthers. The nightcap on Saturday, Packers-Bears. The Rams-Panthers game, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and then Packers-Bears at 8 p.m. Eastern. Then you see the television networks below as well. And then on Sunday, January 11th, we're going to have Bills on the road against the Jags at 1 p.m. Eastern. Niners hitting the road to play Philly, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And then the night game, Chargers on the road against the New England Patriots. That's the 7-2 matchup. And then on Monday night, the Houston Texans on the road to play the Pittsburgh Steelers after the Steelers, thanks to the heroics of Aaron Rodgers and Tyler Loop missing that field goal, they won the AFC North, and they are playoff bound once again under Mike Tomlin. Of course, when you think about Niners-Eagles, you have to rewind back to the 2022 NFC Championship game. And going into that game, I thought it had the potential to be one of the all-time matchups in the history of conference championships, because both the Niners roster and the Eagles roster were littered with a bunch of All-Pros, Pro Bowlers, and future Hall of Famers. So Philadelphia won that game 31-7, but context, of course, important. It was soured right away for the Niners. On their first drive of the game, Brock Purdy got hit by an unblocked Hassan Reddick off that left edge. He hurt his elbow. That's why he needed that UCL surgery. Then he came back the following year and was top 5 in MVP voting. Then his backup, Josh Johnson, because Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt, Trey Lance as well, came into the game right after Purdy in that first quarter, kind of kept it close, but then in the third frame, he got knocked out with a concussion. So late in the game, in an NFC Championship game, to determine who represented the NFC, in Super Bowl 57, we saw Christian McCaffrey taking quarterback reps. Really a shame that we didn't get to see a matchup between those two loaded teams, because I thought it could have been an iconic game. Philadelphia finding a lot of success on the ground as that Niners defense just wore out throughout the course of the ball game. The Eagles ran for 4 touchdowns, and they won the turnover battle 3-0. You rewind back to Week 13 of 2023. The result flipped. The Niners able to get their revenge on the Eagles as Philadelphia kind of dealt with that Super Bowl hangover in 2023. San Francisco winning that game 42-19. Brock Purdy was in fuego. He threw 4 touchdown passes in that game. Deebo Samuel went off. 3 touchdowns combined through the air and on the ground, and he was picking up some monster yards after the catch. The Niners put up 456 yards of offense against an Eagles defense that was limping and bad at the time. And the Eagles ended the year losing 6 of their final 7 games. This game started that Eagles collapse, and the Niners kind of put out a playbook for how to stop that Eagles offense in Jalen Hurts. The Niners and Eagles really don't have much of a playoff history. It's so funny because I started covering the Niners in 2021 and then the Eagles in 2022. And I grew up in the Philadelphia area. And prior to me talking about the Niners, Eagles, and the NFL for a living, the Niners and Eagles really didn't have a rivalry. These fan bases didn't really care about one another. They didn't meet up in the postseason, really. And they were in the NFC West, NFC East. They didn't play a lot against one another in some marquee games. But now that has completely changed because these two organizations and teams don't like each other. And the new iteration of this Niners-Eagles matchup, I think it's safe to say it is a rivalry. Now, they've only met 2 times in the postseason, as I mentioned. In 1996, in the wild card round, the Niners beat the Eagles 14-0. And then, of course, the aforementioned NFC Championship game back in 2022. When I scout the Niners, San Francisco has one of the most elite offensive play callers combined with defensive play callers in the sport. Shanahan is the head coach, but he's also the offensive coordinator. Robert Saleh, obviously a former Jets head coach, and an elite defensive mind and defensive coordinator. And Saleh this year, with all the injuries on that Niners defense, has really done a great job of making chicken salad out of chicken shit. But you won't find a better combination leading the offense and defense across the league than Shanahan and Saleh. Brock Purdy, prior to a bad game on Saturday against that Seahawks team, in which he was, I believe, 6-1, 5-1 against Seattle prior to that game, when the Niners only scored 3 points, he was cooking. He had combined for 10 touchdowns in the last 2 games, 13 over the last 3. He did it against some mediocre to bad opponents, but Purdy was playing better than any quarterback in the NFL. How does he respond in this game? San Francisco, along their offensive line and their defensive line, very weak in the trenches. We'll talk more about that in our preview here. This defense, of course, sorely missing Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, 2 of the best players in all of football, regardless of position or side of the ball. And then there's a little bit of a lack of explosion at wide receiver for the Niners. They have it with Ricky Pearsall, but he's unreliable because he's always hurt. And so without him against Seattle, no vertical field stretcher. And this Niners offense was anemic. They didn't threaten Seattle at all downfield because they just don't have a ton of speed. In scouting the Philadelphia Eagles, this defense under Vic Fangio, one of the best. If Niner fans were impressed by what Seattle did against the Niners offense on Saturday night, you're going to be impressed with the personnel, the coaching, and the scheme that Philadelphia has to offer here. And they've been white hot over the last couple of months, coming off a year in which they won the Super Bowl. They were all over Patrick Mahomes in that game, and they were the number one defense last year. And Fangio's unit is really sound on all three levels. They're violent up front. They can get after the quarterback. They're really good at the linebacker spot, and they can utilize their backers as blitzers, but also in coverage, they're good against the run. And then in that secondary, especially at the corner spots, led by Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, they're also very sound there. As far as this Eagles offense, it's been a very weird season. For the fourth year in a row, Jalen Hurts has more than 30 combined touchdowns. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, over 1,000 yards. Saquon Barkley, over 1,000 rushing yards. Dallas Goedert has a franchise record 11 touchdowns at the tight end spot. Yet they've been so Jekyll and Hyde and up and down where they've lacked a lot of consistency. And they haven't been the same great running team that they were last year. This Eagles team, when you make it to a Super Bowl in 2022, you make it to a Super Bowl in 2024, when you've made it to the playoffs in 5 straight years. They're battle-tested. They also are clutch, and they thrive in close games. And the Birds have not lost a home playoff game since 2019. So with that, who you got on Sunday afternoon? Type SF for the Niners, PHI for the Philadelphia Eagles. Drop your predictions down below, and I'll give you my prediction a little bit later on. And let's do a sub-battle. Which channel can pick up the most subscribers this week? The 49ers Report or Philadelphia Eagles Now? Let's make this a little bit of a competition because it's going to be a great competition on Sunday. Which fan base cares more about their team? Hit that sub button right now. Some notable Niners injury news. Of note, I'm recording this on Monday, so we'll get more information on this all throughout the week, and of course, we'll detail and outline that. Trent Williams' hamstring injury, suffered that on that pick 6 against the Bears on that first play of the game 2 weeks ago. Did not play against the Seahawks. It is believed that he is going to play in this game. He turns an okay offensive line to a better offensive line. Without him, the Niners sorely missed him against Seattle. Ricky Pearsall, back and knee injuries, also did not go against the Seahawks. Shanahan did say if the game was on Sunday that Trent and Pearsall would have a better opportunity to play. How about this? Every linebacker that was on the Niners' initial 53-man roster is currently hurt. So in the middle of the field, San Francisco is pretty susceptible there. And a lot of you might be asking about Fred Warner. Chase, I've heard some murmurs he could come back for the playoffs. He's been telling people he's targeting a return in the divisional round after breaking and dislocating his ankle against the Buccaneers in October. It would be an insanely fast recovery. Not going to be able to play in this game. Some notable Eagles injury news. Lane Johnson, Liz Frank in the foot, has not played since week 11, and it was believed that maybe he was going to be able to give it a go the last few weeks of the year, but the Eagles saved him for the postseason. Nakobe Dean, he's been awesome since he's come back from that patellar tendon injury. He's dealing with the hamstring issue. He has not played since week 16. And then Jalen Carter hip popped up on the injury report last week. Jalen Carter is a massive key in this game going up against that weak interior of the Niners offensive line. Now, this was the Eagles injury report on Friday, and it features a lot of marquee players. Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Marcus Epps, Dallas Goedert, Lane Johnson, Jalen Phillips. All those players did not play against the Commanders, but of note here, Nick Sirianni did rest his starters. If it were a playoff game, I'm pretty sure all of those players, for the most part, would have played. Coming up next, I'm going to give you my keys to the game, top matchups to watch for this wild card tilt between San Francisco and Philadelphia. Can't wait to break this matchup down further, and I hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, type real one down in the comments section. But first, let's get to our sponsor. Prize Picks, making today's show possible. This is the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America. Join the millions of users and sign up today. I promise you, you won't regret it. All you have to do, it's very simple to play. You choose more or less on 2 or more player stat projections, and you can win some really big-time money. And you think about where we are in the calendar year, right? Whether you're starting a new routine, making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard, but in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never stops. And Prize Picks lets you take control. New feature alert, Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out of those winnings before the game even finishes. With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. copy lineups you like, or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tail or fade our picks with just one click. 4-pick power play for this game. A.J. Brown, more than 65.5 receiving yards. Christian McCaffrey, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. Dallas Goedert finding the end zone as well. And then George Kittle, more than 62.5 receiving yards. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, let's move forward here. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Chase Sr. I am so excited for this Niners-Eagles game in the wild card round coming up on Sunday in South Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field. And coming up here over the next several minutes, I'm going to outline my keys to the game and top matchups to watch for this wild card tilt. Let's first take a look at how the Niners stack up on both sides of the pill here. On offense, this is the 10th best scoring offensive unit in the NFL at 25.7 points per game. Prior to going flat against the Seahawks on Saturday night in Week 18, they were on a heater, dropping 30-plus, 40-plus points in 3 consecutive games. They're 7th in yards per game, so they can move it at 351.4, 11th in yards per play at 5.5. They do lack vertical speed on this team. Number 1 third down offense in the league, and then a top 5 red zone touchdown efficiency rate as well at 65.1%. The weakness for this Niners team is on defense. It's personnel, it's depth, it's a lack of talent, it's injuries, it's against the run, it's being leaky on that back end. But Robert Saleh has done a good job of maximizing this unit as much as he can, right? 13th in points per game are the Niners, 20th in yards per game, 24th in yards per play, 19th on third downs. And a big key for San Francisco, they've given up yards, they've given up big plays, they've been bad against the run at times, but they have bent but not broken in the red zone. They're 12th there on defense. To the Philadelphia Eagles here, it has been a pedestrian offensive season for the Eagles, especially as far as their scoring output. 22.3 points per game, that's 19th. They're only 24th in yards per game, 19th in yards per play, 24th on third downs. A big key for Philadelphia, kind of like San Francisco on defense, number 1 red zone offense in the NFL. And when they've made it to Super Bowls in recent memory, their offense has taken it up a notch in the playoffs. Eagles fans are hoping that's the case here this year. On defense, Vic Fangio's unit is humming. They're 5th in points per game allowed season long, 13th in yards per game, 7th in yards per play, 21st on third down. So Niners number 1 on offense, Philadelphia 21st on third downs. That could be a big key in this game. But again, like San Francisco here, the Eagles, they buckle down inside that red area. As far as my keys to the game, top matchups to watch, this is a big one. Literally, physically. The Eagles defensive line against the Niners offensive line. This Eagles defensive line has an opportunity to manhandle San Francisco in the trenches, take over the game, and overwhelm the Niners. There is a clear talent gap here. Philadelphia up front, they'll feature speed rushers on the outside who also have versatility. And then along the interior, there might not be a better 3 defensive tackle combination in the NFL than Moro Ojomo, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis, the latter of whom having a career year. The trade for Jalen Phillips has changed the complexion of this Eagles defense. He has been outstanding. And then Nolan Smith is a really dynamic player. And last year, he really turned it on in the playoffs as well. The best edge rusher on this team, arguably, could be Jalix Hunt. He leads the team in sacks with 6.5, leads the team in interceptions with 3. This is a former safety at Cornell who started playing pass rusher not long ago at Houston Baptist, and you see his athleticism on display. He's so active. Also has 9 TFLs against the run, 2 forced fumbles, those 3 picks, and 3 passes defended. So that is an all-star caliber defensive front for the Eagles there. This Niners offensive line, they are hoping and praying that Trent Williams can play in this game and that he can make it through this game. Because if he can't, we could see a repeat of what happened for the Niners against Seattle, because the Eagles defense is up there with the Seahawks. So Trent Williams makes an average offensive line a little bit better. Without him, Austin Pleasance would be in there at left tackle. You already know the Eagles would try to expose that. Spencer Burford, okay player. Jake Brendel, not strong at the anchor point. Dominic Pooney, clean sheet against the Seahawks, one of the lone bright spots. And then Colton McKivitz, a good player, but when he goes up against elite players, he does really struggle. Since week 8, the Philadelphia Eagles defense is giving up 14.5 points per game, which is number 1 in the NFL. And they've gone up against some really high-octane offenses. This Eagles defense, similar to Seattle's defense. Mike Macdonald, Vic Fangio, two of the best defensive play callers in the sport. Seattle, long, fast, physical, athletic. This Eagles team, they can check all those boxes as well. And a big key in this game, too, if the Eagles can generate a pass rush on Brock Purdy. Coming off that Seahawks game, this is a concern if I'm the Niners here. Purdy was pressured on 12 of 32 dropbacks, 38% against the Seahawks. Second highest rate for him this season. He really didn't have a chance. Plus, nobody was open downfield, and the protection couldn't hold up. They couldn't run the football. And when Purdy was pressured, he was 4 of 8 for just 29 yards. He was also sacked 3 times. That is the formula for Philadelphia in this game. If the Eagles can stop the run and get after Brock Purdy, it could be a long day for this Niners offense. Look, what San Francisco has accomplished this year, winning 12 games, it's incredible. But at some point, I just think that the gas is going to run out because the Niners are kind of getting close to running on empty. That's what happens when you suffer a litany of injuries. You look at how this Niners offense fared against the Seahawks. 173 total yards, 4.1 yards per play. Purdy only threw for 120. Yards per pass, just over 4. Rushing yards, 12 totes for 53 yards, 4.4 yards per carry. San Francisco turned it over once when they finally got in the red zone. Brutal Christian McCaffrey drop, which led to a pick. And they got dominated 37 minutes to 22 in the time of possession category. Key to the game and top matchup number 2. The Eagles' offensive line against the Niners' defensive line. San Francisco, dead last in the NFL in sacks this year by a wide margin. Dead last in sack percentage and pressure rate. Now, the Eagles' offensive line, it has a lot of star talent, right? Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Lane Johnson. They've all been either All-Pros or Pro Bowlers. Philadelphia missing Mekhi Becton. That's where Tyler Steen has filled in. He's been a fine player. He's just not a road grader and a mauler like Becton is. But this Eagles offensive line, I think they're worn down from last year when Saquon Barkley ran for over 2,000 yards. That's something that Jordan Mailata has talked about. Landon Dickerson has been hurt all year. Same with Cam Jurgens coming off an offseason back surgery. But I still like, physically and coaching-wise, how they match up against this Niners defensive line. This defensive front for San Francisco is one of the worst in the NFL. And it's kind of a miracle that they won 12 games this year. That's props to Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh. Keon White, nice player, but not great or elite by any means. Jordan Elliott would be a backup on a lot of other teams. He's a good run stuffer. Kalia Davis, he kind of is what he is. And then the former Eagle Bryce Huff, good start to the year, but he clearly needs talent around him. He was playing well alongside Mykel Williams and Nick Bosa. When he's been the number 1 pass rusher, he's really struggled to get after the quarterback. And the Seahawks offense against the Niners, they had a bunch of success up front with their offensive line against this Niners defensive line. 361 yards of total offense, 5.4 yards per play. Funny enough, I thought they kept the ball out of Sam Darnold's hands. He really didn't have to risk it all that much. The Seattle Seahawks were very safe with their offensive game plan. This was the big key here. Niners couldn't get stops. In the ground game, they gave up a couple of back-breaking 3rd and long conversions that can flip the momentum of a game and really deflate you. Seattle possessing it for 39 carries, 180 yards, 37 minutes, and they didn't turn it over once. Now, Philadelphia, 16 turnovers on the year. That's top 10 in the NFL. They play pretty clean football. 5 of those turnovers came in that Chargers game. And while Saquon Barkley has had a quote-unquote down year, a down year for Saquon coming off of Offensive Player of the Year honors, where he was over more than 2,000 rushing yards in the regular season and set the record for the most rushing yards in a regular season and playoffs combined. He still ran 280 times for 1,100 plus yards, 7 touchdowns, and 4.1 yards per carry. I guarantee you this, that the Eagles are going to come out, they're going to force San Francisco to stop the run. And if the Niners can't, that could spell trouble. You also have to account for Jalen Hurts as a runner. Prior to that Bills second half, the Eagles were using Hurts a little bit more in the ground game. And then when the playoffs come around and the pressure is on, Hurts plays his best football. He's so cool, calm, and collected in a flatliner, and he uses his legs more. This Seahawks team, they were road graders on the ground against the Niners. What that does, it doesn't just wear down your defense, keeping the defense on the field for a long time. With a rhythm-based offense, it keeps the offense on the sideline, and we just saw the Niners could not capture any flow or rhythm on offense because they didn't possess the football all that much, which is why they had 8 drives and they had 4 3-and-outs. Can the Niners on defense guard the Eagles' weapons? Statistically, Philadelphia kind of an average offensive unit this year, but they're the highest paid offense in the league, and they have a bunch of star power. It's crazy to me that Jalen Hurts doesn't get more respect. This is a guy who, in 4 consecutive years, has had more than 30 touchdowns. He's won a lot, and he's played a big role in that as a dual-threat quarterback. Completed under 65% of his passes this year for 3,200 yards, 33 total touchdowns, and 6 picks. And if you're going to say, oh, it's because of the tush push, hasn't been nearly as effective this year. So a lot of those rushing touchdowns, actually dynamic plays by Hurts, and a quarterback rating of 98.5. The numbers really don't lie here. So you have his production. Then you have A.J. Brown, who had 78 catches for more than 1,000 yards every year that he's been with the Eagles. 2022, 2023, 2024, now 2025. He's gone over 1,000 yards, but everybody tries to say that Hurts holds him back. And then yesterday, Devontae Smith entered that Commanders game 44 yards away from 1,000. He went over 1,000 yards. And it's the 3rd time in 5 years in his career that he's done that. Targeted a lot, 113 targets this year, more of a deep threat than A.J. Brown, and a very slippery route runner. But both of those guys really hard to bring down in the open field. And then Dallas Goedert, he's criminally been underrated as one of the top all-around tight ends in the NFL for the last several years behind George Kittle, who I still think is the best tight end in football. 60 catches for 591 yards and 11 touchdowns for Dallas Goedert this season. Where it could get interesting, there is a clear, and I mean clear, coaching advantage for San Francisco. Robert Saleh as a defensive coordinator calling the shots against Kevin Patullo, the offensive coordinator. So if the Niners muddy this game up and they make it close and the fans start to get tense, they start to boo, and then the Eagles start to play tight and this game is close late where any play can decide it, that's where this game could get a little bit dicey. The Niners will need to tackle better if they want to have success in this game. 18 missed tackles against the Seahawks on Saturday night. Completely unacceptable. One thing Kyle Shanahan did not do, and this is a credit to Mike McDonald's scheme, just playing in nickel all throughout the game, Shanahan needs to scheme guys open. It is a strength of his as an offensive play caller and play designer, but Seattle had such sticky Velcro coverage against the Niners, and nobody got open for San Francisco really outside of that George Kittle deep pass late where he picked up like 20 yards. Other than that, the protection didn't hold up. The play action wasn't working. Kyle Shanahan tried to move the pocket. The Niners didn't have any elusive speed at the skill position spots to get open, and that was a problem for San Francisco. And how about this? Led by Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, the Eagles have held opponents to the lowest completion percentage in the NFL at 56.5%. That is the Eagles' best mark since 2008. And the Eagles have allowed only 13 passing touchdowns, fewest in the NFL. Purdy had tight windows against Seattle. I imagine he's going to have more tight windows to throw against Philadelphia. Top matchups to watch furthermore. The Eagles have really good coverage linebackers. Zach Bond, All-Pro last year, finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. He was an All-Pro alongside Fred Warner. Nakobe Dean, a good coverage linebacker. Their third backer is Jahad Campbell. They can all run and cover. So they can defend George Kittle, I think, at least a little bit. And then Cooper DeJean in the Super Bowl, he was defending Travis Kelce. He can be matched up against tight ends. So that's going to be a big matchup because Kittle, by far and away, is Brock Purdy's number one go-to guy. Then there's Quinyon Mitchell against Ricky Pearsall if Ricky Pearsall plays. Pearsall, like Devontae Smith, very clean route runner with good footwork. He has a great release. He can beat man or zone. So that's going to be a really good matchup to pinpoint as well. The Eagles' safety play is a little bit susceptible to giving up big plays. So look for Kyle Shanahan with some misdirection, with some play design to try to take some plays over the top if the Niners can have a burner like Ricky Pearsall out there. The target for San Francisco to win this game, given how bad their defense is, because they come in with a massive disadvantage on defense, get to 25 to 30 points offensively and hope to generate a turnover or two. And then lastly, could a big special teams play decide this game? I think this game is going to be close. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think these are two of the most well-coached teams in the NFL outside of Kevin Patullo as the Eagles offensive coordinator. The Eagles DVOA rankings, number 17 on offense. So middle of the pack. Really good on defense at number 6. Number 25 on special teams. Now, I will say it's more because Jake Elliott has missed a bunch of kicks this year. I actually think the Eagles' punt and kick return coverage has been pretty good, but they've also had some lapses at returning kicks. So a big special teams play in this game could sway the game, and Sky Moore has a couple of really big returns for the Niners this year. The Niners' DVOA rankings, number 2 on offense, but number 27 on defense. Number 13 on special teams. And I've said this, if the special teams can be about average and the offense can be here, obviously the defense has to get better. You can live here if you're San Francisco, because last year they were 31st or 32nd in DVOA on special teams, and it killed them time and time again. The time has come. We got a lot of people watching this show right now. I want you to predict the score. Niners, Eagles, Sunday afternoon in Philly. My prediction, I think this game is close. I think this game comes down to the wire. But I think at the end, over the course of a 60-minute ball game, the Eagles do beat the Niners 26-23. Here is why I like the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the 49ers in the wild card round on Sunday. The Eagles have the rest advantage. Nick Sirianni did not play his starters in Week 18. The Niners were in a dogfight, plus they have to travel across the country to Philadelphia. The Eagles are playing at home. They have not lost a home playoff game since 2019 when Carson Wentz was knocked out against the Seahawks by Jadeveon Clowney. Top to bottom on offense and defense, the Eagles have far more roster talent, and that's what happens when you lose a bunch of players to injury if you're San Francisco. I'm a big believer that the game of football is decided in the trenches. Sometimes you have to watch the game from the sideline. Who gets the best push? I think the Eagles have the clear edge in the trenches, and in order for the Niners to pull off an upset as 3.5-point underdogs, they're going to have to play perfect. Get to around 30 points on offense, generate a turnover or two on defense, and then have a big special teams play. Don't forget to give me a follow on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Chase_Senior. My content has been popping on social media, so show me love over there. And I'm giving you free additional content over there. Just launched that TikTok page, trying to get to 10K as soon as possible. And keep it tapped here because we got you covered with great coverage all week.